Good morning, everyone. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started here. Welcome to Planting Possibilities, Plants New to Us for 2025. This is where we'll unveil the latest additions to our plant catalog. My name is Jamie Heflin, and I'll be your host today. I'll mainly be backstage trying to keep things moving smoothly. And before we dive in, I have just a couple of housekeeping notes. This is a webinar, so your camera has been disabled and your microphone is muted. If you have a question, feel free to type it into the Q&A box. Nikki and Shannon will be answering questions throughout the webinar as well as at the end. We value your feedback, so we'll have a couple of quick anonymous polls to get your input from throughout the webinar. This is being recorded and it'll be available on YouTube on our Midwest Ground Covers YouTube channel sometime in the coming weeks. So now I'm going to go ahead and introduce our presenters. We have Nikki Moline, who is Vice President of Sales and Marketing. Nikki leads our marketing, sales, and operations team. And Nikki is always learning and bringing fresh ideas to our business. Shannon McInerney is our product manager. She is passionate about plants and quality. Shannon oversees purchasing, product development, and our extensive trial gardens. She ensures that we bring the best plants possible. Nikki and Shannon have shared their plant expertise in many past webinars. If you want to deepen your plant knowledge, be sure to check out our YouTube channel for recordings of our previous presentations. And now we're going to go ahead and get started, and Shannon will take us behind the scenes and show us where our new introductions begin in our trial gardens.
All right, thank you, Jamie, and good morning, everyone. So yes, we just wanted to touch on our trial gardens briefly as we get going here. So trialing is a very important process of introducing new plants for us. I'm not going to say we see every variety in the ground at our St. Charles nursery, but we do trial a lot of them. So we have a dedicated space for perennials. You can see the top area we have there. Up closer to the office, then we did have some perennial trial gardens around our patio. Some of you may know our patio was under construction the second half of last year, but all the brickwork is done. So we're excited to get that replanted this spring and summer and have a whole new space for trial perennials there as well. So in the interim, we did move a few things that we were still kind of looking at over to our shrub display garden. And that area there, we have our, shrubs that we carry in our product line, but we also have trials incorporated there. So we did add a few things in fall that I'm excited to see how they came through the winter. So we are trying to do, as much trialing in the ground as we possibly can. So on that note, we want to get a little feedback from all of you and see, have you visited our trial gardens? So, and while that poll is going, I should mention, all of you, our customers, are welcome to visit our gardens, our display gardens and trial gardens anytime during business hours. We really want your feedback on those gardens as well. So here, we'll go to the poll and then I'll continue on that. So, all right, about 50-50, half have visited and half have not. So those that haven't, we really encourage you to come out. And the other thing we were wondering is, what season are you most interested in visiting? I guess our gardens in general, not just the trial gardens. So this is helpful for us as we're planning events and things like that. Is there a time of year you really want to see the gardens? So on the note of your feedback, in the past, we've had some boxes with like a form and you can fill out which ones are of interest to you. I think, we've started going the way of QR codes in some other areas. So this year, maybe looking into that, doing a QR code that will pass your information to the website of what you like and what you think we should be trialing. So our second poll here, All right. So kind of a little bit higher in June and July, which that's interesting because I think of we often think of July and maybe August as times where the garden's a little bit tired. I think we're seeing less and less of that. There's, we're learning to appreciate things in different season, and I think there's just been more kind of late summer things coming into the market as well. So thank you for that information. And with that, we will get going with our new plants. So the first category we're going to cover is ground covers. And this first plant, we have it in our ground covers section because it is part of our Hocus Pocus ground covers program, but this is actually also a native, so it can go both ways. So this is Carex flaccosperma, or blue wood sedge. And this is a plant that would be a great alternative, like for liriope, in a more shaded area. Maybe not quite as tall as liriope, about 6 to 12 inches tall and wide. But one of kind of the reasons for us to add this plant is because we did phase out Carex flacca this year. We have stopped carrying that. And that's just due to kind of some of the invasive concerns that were coming down the pike with that. Personally, I was seeing Carex flacca start to get a little out of control in a couple areas. We had it in our gardens, kind of starting to bully other things out. So we felt like that was something that we just didn't want to carry any longer. So this is a great alternative, a native alternative, not native to like the Chicagoland area or Lake Michigan area as much as more the East Coast and Southern United States, but there are a couple pockets in Southern Illinois and more Central Illinois where it is native. Whereas Carex flacca was native to like the Mediterranean area of Europe and North Africa. So this is not going to spread as quickly as Carex flacca. You can see from the picture, it's a clump and it kind of slowly spreads by short rhizomes. So it will kind of creep, but not at the speed that Carex flacca was doing. So this also has kind of a nice blue-green foliage. So again, just a really nice plant for shadier areas, particularly moist, shady areas. So this is Carex flaccosperma. Sorry, and I forgot our polls here. So for our first one is, in the recent years, have you found yourself using more or less ground cover? All right, so more and about the same. So that's good. I think we know there are certain ground covers out there that are starting to get maybe a bad rap, but there are definitely good ground covers, and ground covers are definitely, useful in many situations. So that kind of leads us into our second poll. What is your, or do we have a second poll, Jamie?
It looks like the second poll doesn't want to launch for some reason,
Oh,
so we'll
okay.
skip that one.
Well, yes. So our second poll was, what is your primary reason for using ground covers? So I guess if you want to drop that in the Q&A or anything, we can do that. So now we are going to move on to natives.
All right. Good morning, everybody. So we do have a couple new natives that we're adding to the line. Of course, they're not new. They're found in nature, but we're adding them. So the first one is going to be Asclepias purpurescens. So this one might look kind of familiar to you. It looks pretty similar to Asclepias syriaca, but there are some differences. So this one is going to be maybe slightly smaller, less vigorous than syriaca. We're going to see some deeper flower color. The flowers themselves are going to be a little smaller. They tend to stand more straight up on the plant instead of droop like you see on syriaca. One really nice thing about this plant it is way less aggressive than Syriaca. So if you have Syriaca in your garden, you usually find Syriaca everywhere because it seeds pretty readily and it does spread by runners and it'll run pretty far. Asclepias purpurescens we have planted in a stock bed at Natural Garden, and really we have not seen it spread by runners pretty much at all in our stock bed. So a little bit of seeding, but in general, it is a less vigorous plant, so it's still really good, really valuable. Likes shade, so will actually grow better in part shade. In nature, it's usually found in oak pine forest edges, and it doesn't really colonize, which kind of leads to what we've been seeing at Natural Garden with the lack of spreading by runners. Um, just with this plant, so you're totally aware of it, when you're trying to establish it, year one is really critical. This plant is a little bit tougher to get established, but if you can get past year one, you will have no problem with it. So year one, you're going to see it's not going to flower as much, and we got to take care of it a little bit more. So it likes moist, well-drained soils. It's not going to really do well in heavy clay. Again, naturally, it's usually more found in more sandy soils. But again, it's a really great plant. It is a host for monarch caterpillars like other Asclepias, but just a little bit tougher to establish, but definitely worth a shot. So again, this one's Asclepias purpurescens.
Okay, next we have Carex gricia or wood gray sedge. So while we're calling this one new, as Nikki said, I mean, it's not new because it's a native, but we also did carry this one several years ago. We weren't able to produce it on a regular basis, so we kind of took it out of the product line. But gratefully, Enrique at Natural Garden has figured this one out, so we're excited to be able to carry this one again. So this Carex is similar in some ways to the Carex fleccosperma we talked about in the first slide, that this could also be a great native alternative to Liriope. It is a little bit taller than the Carex fleccosperma, so about 18 to 24 inches tall. It also, similar to the Carex fleccosperma, is going to like moist shaded areas. So this one is native to the central and eastern United States and is typically found kind of in moist river areas and swamps. It has nice dark green foliage. It does flop after flowering. So once it kind of, you can see a few of the flower heads there. So once it flowers, it will kind of open up, but then it does get another flush of foliage relatively quickly. And this one does produce a fair amount of seed, but in our experience, not all of it is necessarily viable. So it's not like it's going to be dropping seed and you're going to have seedlings everywhere. It's going to be more spreading by that clump form. So that is Carex gricia, and we do have it available now.
All right, our next one is Syncytium albidium, white blue-eyed grass. So got two colors going on there. So this one's actually, it's a really nice kind of short native plant. It's going to have nice grassy foliage. The foliage is very blade-like. It's a nice blue-green color. And then the flowers are going to be white to a light blue color. I asked Enrique this morning, I was like, what are you seeing in production mostly? And he did say there's definitely a nice light blue tinge to the flower. So the flowers are kind of cool. They only open during the day, so you'll see them open on sunny days from mid-morning to mid-afternoon. On cloudy days, sometimes the flowers don't open. So this plant definitely needs some sun to enjoy those flowers. It will take moister soils. Well-drained is important though, so it can handle a little bit of water, but again, we don't want it sitting in water. The plant doesn't like that. It prefers to be in a full sun location. And it will spread by rhizomes. So this one's not really, again, it's a native plant. We have not seen it be overly aggressive, but it will spread and kind of form a nice clump by rhizomes. And pollinators love this plant. So generally, flowers with a yellow center are kind of like a bullseye for our pollinator friends. So this plant is definitely a pollinator magnet. And you're going to see it bloom on the earlier side. So depending on the weather, you're going to see this one bloom from April to June. So a nice kind of earlier spring, summer bloomer. So this one is Sasyncreum albidium.
Okay, and I think Jamie's typing an answer, but I think we do have a poll on the natives as well.
Yes. So of the following options, what is most important to you in choosing a native plant for a project? So it's interesting. A lot of native plants, they have value for the residential landscape, but a lot also have value from more of a restoration or natural environment standpoint. So when you guys are speccing natives more for like the residential landscape, what are you guys looking for? Awesome. Makes sense.
Right. Choosing the right plant for the project.
Yes. Very
All
good.
right, so now we are going to get into perennials. So our first perennial is from the Chicagoland Grows program, and it is Amsonia verdant venture. So this was still Jim Alt retired from the Chicago Botanic Garden a few years ago, but this is still one of his last breeding projects while he was there. And this is just a really nice Amsonia. We did have, or well, yeah, we moved it because of the patio construction, but we did have it in our trial garden down by the patio for several years. And it is a, kind of a thread leaf Amsonia, so those really fine leaves. So while we have it listed there as an excellent sub for blue ice, it's definitely going to have that more fine foliage than blue ice does. Same, nice light blue flowers in that early season, April or early May. But the thing about this, I think maybe the two things are the fall color is fantastic, as you can see on that picture on the upper left, but also just maintains its form really well. So kind of that nice mound, a little bit wider than it is tall, and just keeps that nice shape all season, where I feel like sometimes the other Amsonia start to get a little rangy and do strange things. Another nice thing about this plant is I know we've had questions in the past about like Amsonia hubrichtii and kind of getting that chlorotic color as we get later in the season. We have not seen any of this on this plant, so it keeps that nice dark green foliage, or kind of vibrant green foliage, I guess, through the season until it takes on its fall color. So this has been a really nice plant, nice size for more front of the border. So if you're using Amsonia, this is definitely one to check out.
Shannon, how about rabbit resistance on that one?
Oh, always a good question. So I guess, my yard is a better test of rabbits than the Midwest Ground Covers property. I we haven't seen any rabbit damage on this. So until we get it in some different spots, I would say it probably kind of along the lines of what you typically see on Amsonia in your area.
All right. Next one's going to be Baptisia Pink Lemonade. So this is a proven winners variety, and this is one that we've carried in our Bud and Bloom program for a while, and many employees at Midwest have planted this in their yard, and it has quickly become a fan favorite here. So we decided to add it to the regular line. So really nice plant. It's part of the Decadence series through Proven Winners Baptisia breeding. And with that breeding, they're looking for really nice shape on the plant. So really nice vase habit, compact, and then different flower colors. So on this one, we're going to see the plant open, the flower open, a nice like creamy yellow color. And then as the flowers age, they're going to turn a raspberry red color, which is why they named it pink lemonade. So really pretty Baptisia bred by Hans Hansen over at Walter's Gardens. It's drought tolerant once it's established, has a really nice deep tap root, so it's gonna be a good one for clay soils, can handle that really well, and just really good for any sort of poor soils, as other Baptisias are as well. So really nice perennial. We're excited to add it. Again, Baptisia Pink Lemonade, and we'll have it available this coming summer.
Okay, our next plant is another Carex, but one that is exclusive to Midwest as of now. So this is Carex Ilata Nordic Blade. So you may know our Nordic program where we have several evergreens and a cotoneaster. So this is our first perennial introduction into the Nordic program. So we're really excited about that. So this comes from the Nordic program is a partnership with a few Danish nurseries we have called A Plant. So this came through some of our A Plant partners, specifically Paul Pedersen. So who, if you're familiar with Calamagrostis Overdam, that came from him. His nursery is Overdam in Denmark, Overdam Nursery in Denmark. So he found this plant like in Denmark at the edge of a pond next to a castle. So that's kind of how it got the Nordic Blade name. We were looking for something kind of royal, but we felt that Nordic Blade really suited it well with those long black flower spikes that it gets in early spring. And they are so striking and so beautiful. So this plant does get pretty big over the course of the season. You can see on the right, that's probably more in like late summer. So it does get maybe about 36 inches tall or so. When it gets the black spikes, it's still in a shorter stage. So I would say you're looking at more like 12 to 18 inches when those are coming out, and then it kind of fills out over the rest of the season. So those spikes turn from black to more that kind of fluffy brown that you see in the second picture. I would say shade to part shade for this plant. We do have it in an area with a little bit more sun, and it just hasn't seemed to perform as well. That picture on the right is probably kind of in part shade. And I would say it's probably going to like a little bit more moisture. We have had it again in areas where it gets a bit drier, and it does okay. I would say the coloring just isn't as nice. It's going to be a little more on the yellow side as opposed to kind of that medium green color. So if you're looking for a Carex, kind of like more of a middle to back of the border type plant, this would be a great plant to look into. So this is Carex Nordic Blade.
We had a quick question on Baptisia Pink Lemonade about pollinators. Yeah, I don't think that we've noticed like more pollinators or less pollinators. To be honest, I'm not sure we've really paid close attention to that, but really the value in this plant is more that it's a tough plant and can handle really tough landscape situations. So it might be a trade-off of, yeah, it may not attract as many pollinators, although I can't say that with certainty because we haven't tested that, but it is a really good, strong plant for clay soil. So that's where the landscape benefit is. It's been a really good performer for us. All right, Heliopsis Summer Eclipse. So this is another one we had in the trial garden for a while, I believe. Yes, Shannon? Yes. And we were just kind of really blown away with it. Looks so nice in that kind of dull part of summer when the garden's looking a little bit rougher. It was like a bright shining star. So the foliage was a really nice kind of deep burgundy green color, very clean. The flowers were very striking. And when we were just out in the trial gardens, you know, in that lower time of summer, we just kept getting drawn to it. And we're like, okay, we need to add this plant to our line. So I'm gonna get 2 to 3 feet tall. It did get a little bit, you know, closer to that 3-foot range, I think, in our trial gardens. But really nice plant, prefers drier soils. Again, gonna need more of that well-drained soil. May not do as well in like a heavy clay soil. Performed again really well in our trial gardens. Was nice and compact. So although it was taller, it had really nice shape, wasn't gangly, wasn't falling over. And this one actually scored very highly at the Penn State College of Ag flower trial. So this is a Darwin introduction, and they actually trialed it over in Penn State, and it was one of their higher performing perennials in their trials. So really nice Heliopsis, would definitely recommend giving it a try. How does it hold up in a container? So we have not tried it in like a mixed container, more like with annuals. We haven't done that yet. So I'm not sure. Shannon, do you have
I
any
think
insight on that?
probably the only thing is just if it's going to be a little bit later season, it
Yeah.
wouldn't be like when you're normally doing spring containers or early summer containers. It might just be starting a little later, but I think it might need a little bit kind of a support around it, but I think
Yeah.
it would be okay.
Yeah, and we did not notice any powdery mildew on the foliage. I think that was one of the things like we were really surprised about when I was reading the Penn State trials. The foliage was where it actually scored the highest. So they tracked it every month. They scored the foliage, and it remained clean. So all right.
All right, so next we have, we have Heucherella Pink Revolution. So just kind of to go back, if you're not familiar, Heucherella is a cross between Heuchera, sorry, and Tiarella. So typically they're taking kind of the color of the Heuchera foliage, which this is green. Some of them get a little more exciting. And then kind of that venation and flower form of the Tiarella. So you can see in the pictures here, there is a really nice purple venation on the foliage on these Pink Revolution. This is another one that was in our trial garden for several years and was a very good performer. So there's a lot more flower power on Pink Revolution than you see on a lot of Heucherellas. Uh, more than just the foliage. So you kind of get both the foliage and the flower. And it held up to a wide variety of conditions as well, I would say. Whereas this is typically going to be more of a part shade to shade, like woodland plant can tolerate a little more moisture. We saw it get through drought conditions just fine. It gets a little more tired looking, as most things do in the drought, but it wasn't like, drying up or anything to that extent. So yes, can tolerate the heat and humidity better than most of the Heucheras can. So you're looking for kind of a smaller, good flowering woodland plant, this is a great plant to check out, and we do have these available now.
Shannon, a quick question on the Heliopsis. Did you notice that the flowers aged to yellow? I feel like they held their orange color pretty well.
I think they did. Yeah, I don't really remember that. I feel like they held the orange as long as they were in flower, and then, I don't remember if the petals fell off or kind of curled up, but
Yeah.
yeah, it wasn't like a big transition to a different color.
Okay. Very good. Okay, next one is Iris Grape Delight. So this one is has a bit of an interesting story. So where Midwest Ground Covers is right now, our St. Charles facility used to be an old like farmstead. And this plant was actually found here on our property, and it is a very old iris variety. So that I think has long lineage and connection here with our St. Charles property. So it's a German iris, and it gets really nice, big purple iris flowers. And what's really cool about this plant is it actually gives a pretty strong fragrance of what we feel like smells like grape bubblegum. So if you guys get one, you can tell us what you think it smells like. But gets really nice blue-green foliage like other German iris, a thicker blue-green foliage. Prefers moist, well-drained soils, but again, like other irises, maybe can handle just a little bit wetter at times, but again, need that well-drained soil. Will get a bit taller, so it can reach up to 3 feet if it's super happy, and will do well in full to part sun. So we will have this one available here in early summer. Shannon, I don't know if you have any other historical facts on this one or if I covered them all.
No, mainly just I think we're going to have it available a little bit later than expected because we had some in fall and most of them sold. So
Yes.
that is exciting. That maybe a note on some of these things that are kind of showing later summer availability. We will release plants that are new for the coming year August 1st if we have them available, and sometimes they sell a little bit faster than we expected. So I think that's kind of what happened with this one.
There seems to be a revival in German iris. We're getting asked for German iris more, so it seems that there's definitely a demand for it. So who knows? Maybe we'll add some more down the road.
Before we get to the next plant, there was a question on the Heucherella about how that stands up to deer and rabbits. Again, we don't really see a lot of rabbit pressure in the trial garden, so I can't speak to that 100%. I would say again, probably for what's typical, what you've seen on other Heucherellas. We do have deer and haven't seen much issue with that there. So again, I'm not saying it's not going to touch it, but in our experience, we haven't had an issue with that. Okay, next we have Veronica Pink Potion. So this is from Proven Winners as part of the Magic Show series. So if you are familiar with Veronica Wizard of Oz, that's the same series, and this is going to perform similarly to that. So that is more of just a purple blue color, where this is probably the truest pink Veronica we've carried. We are actually phasing out Eveline, which I always thought of as more pink, but I guess it's more of a purpley pink. So this is going to be even pinker than that. So then from that Magic Show series, we will have the Pink Potion, Purple Illusion, which is more of a bright purple, and then Wizard of Oz, which is a purpley blue. So the whole series is kind of this more compact size of 12 to 18 inches tall or so, slightly wider, and just a really nice dense mound of flowers on top. I am not going to say they are disease resistant, but they seem to hold up to kind of some of the powdery mildew pressure than some of the older varieties of Veronica do. So we've seen maybe not them get through the whole season, but get through, at least the flowering period and a little beyond, much cleaner than some of the other old varieties. And so this one we're expecting to have available in June. I think this was the same thing where some of what we had early, we kind of sold through. We might have it a little sooner than that, but that's kind of what we're expecting. So Veronica Pink Potion. And I think that takes us to the end of the perennials. So which of these perennials are you most excited to try this year?
Which are you most excited about, Shannon?
Ooh, which am I most excited about? When I was getting ready for this, I really do like that Amsonia a lot. I think it is just kind of a multi-season plant. But I like the Baptisia too. Like you said, it's kind of a fan favorite in the office.
Yeah.
The Carex is great. So
I was gonna pick the Amsonia too. I think
Yeah.
it was just such a just stunning plant. I really
Yeah.
like it. So.
Yeah.
We have a question. Does Pink Potion rebloom?
I would say maybe sporadically,
Yeah.
but not in like the full show.
Yeah.
If you cut it back, it might force it to flower a little bit more profusely, but just on its own, not a whole lot, I don't think.
Yeah.
All right, so we're kind of all split across the board here, pretty even. So
not a lot of German iris fans here on the
yeah,
top of it. That's all right.
So but that's good. Yeah, I think we do have, as we said, most of these varieties were in our own trial gardens. So just kind of try them for yourself.
All right. So now we're moving on to shrubs. And I feel like this is actually our biggest list this year, which is interesting. So, so the first shrub is Deer Villa, Kodiak Red 2.0. So, as we know, our friends at Proven Winners like to swap things out because they're constantly breeding. So there is a benefit to that. Sometimes it's a little frustrating, I know, when you mass plant something and now we're switching varieties. But so Spring Meadow Proven Winners, they are dropping Deervilla Kodiak Red. So we have to move here to Red 2.0. It is a better plant. We've seen it. It is good. It does hold its red color longer, so that's one of the benefits, and the stems are a little bit, I would say, stronger than the original as well. So you're going to see that red color persist a little bit more season long instead of just the spring and the fall. But again, in those flank seasons, you are going to see a more intense color. Otherwise, the plant performs just the way Kodiak Red did and the rest of the Kodiak series. Deervilla are super tough. They can handle probably one of the widest range of, garden situations of any plants. They handle dry shade. They can handle a little bit of moisture. They can grow in sun. They can grow in shade too. The denser the shade, the less you'll see the foliage color up. But it's just a really great, strong plant. It is a good substitute, maybe a little bit taller than Rus Grollo. So if you guys are looking for a substitute, you can explore some of the Deervilla options that we have. But again, I know they're a little bit on the taller side, but again, really, really tough plants. So this one again, Deervilla Kodiak Red 2.0.
Great. So next we're going to get into a few hydrangea, and this is Hydrangea Eclipse, which is from the first editions program. And this is probably not entirely unfamiliar to many of you, as Eclipse actually was introduced last year. We had it as part of our Bud and Bloom program, but this year it will be available outside of the Bud program season long. So we will have it in a number 2 this year, but our plan in the future is to have it available in a number 3, like many of our other hydrangeas. So the big thing about Eclipse is it's not the first dark leaf hydrangea, but it really so far is the best on the market. There are other ones that, kind of when they're forced will have the dark leaves. And then as soon as you get them out into the landscape in any type of sun, they turn kind of a dark purpley green, really lose that purple color. So this does hold its dark leaf much better than some of the others that have been on the market. I will be honest, and it's maybe not the nicest hydrangea microphylla form that we've seen. It is a little bit looser, so not quite as dense. I would say a little bit wider than it is tall. But if you're looking for that color, and then it does have the very nice flower color, kind of that maybe a dusty pink color. Again, it's not going to have as strong of a rebloom as something that's like in the Endless Summer program. That's kind of why it was in first editions. So you'll see the one big flush. You might see a sporadic flush here and there through the later summer. We do have this one in our hydrangea garden. It performed just fine last year. And kind of did what I said, where, had the original flush and then maybe threw off a flower later in the summer here and there. But the color really did hold up nicely. And the form, while being a little bit looser, did stand up well as well. So kind of that part sun, maybe morning sun is going to kind of be the sweet spot for it. So we do have those available now. So just looking if there are any questions here. So we have Eclipse was spectacular in the garden. So great. That's great to hear. With blooming subsequent years after planting, if that is a question on Eclipse, we planted it in fall of 2023. So it did bloom nicely last year. So I'm expecting it will be okay. Hardiness, it is zone 5 hardy. And so that was another reason I think it was not included in the Endless Summer program, is they generally want those plants to be zone 4 hardy. So not quite as hardy there. So, so that is Eclipse, and I think I said, but we do have it available now.
And it really does need sun. I planted mine in pretty deep shade just to see what happened, and it did not perform well. So it needs sun to look good. Just So you guys know I did that trial for you. All right, next one, hydrangea flowerful. We're pretty excited about this one. So again, lots of hydrangeas. How do you decide? But you know, this one has performed really well. We actually Shannon and I went up to Bailey and got to see the mother plant, which was really cool. It was out in a big field in Minnesota and just looked absolutely spectacular. So this is an arborescence, so you can compare it, you know, to your Annabelle or Incredible. It's slightly shorter than Incredible. Much more floriferous, but I will say I think the flowers are a little bit smaller than you would see on Incredible or even Annabelle. But again, just way more of them. The other kind of cool thing about this plant is it flowers from top to bottom. If you have experience with Incredible or Annabelle, they tend to flower more just on the top of the plants. This one, you'll have blooms all the way to the bottom. This will bloom on new wood, so you guys can, you know, cut them back in late winter, early spring. But really nice plant, very sturdy stems, no flopping, just really good garden plant. So we're excited about this one. If you have experience with it, because I know we handed out samples of them at our Customer Appreciation Day, let us know this season how it's working for you. We'd love to hear your feedback too.
All right, so our last hydrangea in this presentation is hydrangea Pinky Winky Prime. So this is also behind me. I think it's the same picture. But so then again, like Nikki said before, Proven Winners is always working on improvements to their plants. So this is just an improved variety of Pinky Winky. So and looking back at pictures yesterday, Pinky Winky did kind of have it where it comes out as pure white and then ages from the bottom up. And it was more of a dusty pink color. It wasn't like a real deep color. So there is definitely improvement here on kind of a deeper red pink color as it goes through that color aging process. Also a bit fuller flowers. So you still have a few of those, you know, the most of the flowers are sterile, but you still have a few of those there that are for the pollinators, but a little bit denser flower bloom than before. Overall size is going to be very similar to Pinky Winky. Otherwise, performance should be very similar. So just kind of a little improvement on the flower color. And this one we do have available now.
Oh, okay. Which hydrangea are you most likely to try this season? We did have a couple more questions on flowerful. So I would say when we went to go see the mother plant in Minnesota, it is planted in full sun. So I don't think we've trialed it in any sort of shade situation. I don't have experience.
We haven't, and
Yeah.
I did ask about that. I think that's probably my biggest question on flowerful right now is because I know Annabelle is an important plant for flowers in the shade. And so it sounds like most of Bailey's trialing has been in the sun. So I think that's still kind of one thing that needs to be answered. We did plant one in the landscape last summer. It's kind of in a partial shade situation. So we'll kind of see how that goes there. And then I think, was there one more question?
Yeah, are they sterile?
I believe so, yes.
Yes.
Yeah. I think the best, and I think we're gonna try to get a few in this year, but the best arborescens for pollinators is Haas Halo because it's got that the sterile on the outside and then on the interior, you know, that the pollinators can access.
Yeah. All right. Next one is Rosa Knockout Easy Beasy. So we are dropping, we're not going to be growing any more Knockout Sunny. So this will be a replacement for that. It is an improvement over Knockout Sunny, I would say. The flowers are definitely a richer yellow color and they don't fade to white. They actually fade to just maybe how the Sunny Knockout emerged, which was a very light yellow color and then faded to white. So we don't see maybe just like that full fade to white, but that it tends to hold its yellow color more. It's also nice and fragrant, so we noticed that in the greenhouse this past year when we were growing it for bud and bloom. It has a nice citrusy fragrance, and it is a pollinator magnet, so bees love this plant. So really nice kind of knockout rose. I think we have definitely noticed a trend where people are planting roses less. I do have to put a kind of plug in for knockouts that they really do flower from spring until frost. We had knockouts flowering well into November, like even Thanksgiving, even when the temperatures were super cold, we had flowers still going off on the plants. So you know, it's something to consider. Knockouts have pretty good disease resistance. They're nice and compact. They don't need a lot of maintaining. So definitely check out, maybe consider a knockout again. I don't know.
Yes, and for those who may not know, we did redo our rose garden in St. Charles last year, kind of updated the varieties, and Easy Beasy is in there. It, like Nikki said, it did look beautiful until
Oh, nice.
probably October and November. I would say it definitely is an improvement over Sunny Knockout.
Yeah.
Okay, next we have Sorbaria Cherry on Top. So this is from the Bloom and Easy program, which we have a few other varieties from. So we like this plant a lot. You know, kind of the old standard Sorbaria is stem. And a few of the brand programs have kind of come out with their variations. And this is the one that we've liked the best. So probably the biggest part of it is kind of what the name implies. Once you have that white flower in summer and it starts to age, this this variety, that seed head turns a really nice cherry red color. So you have some interest beyond the flower, beyond kind of the foliage emerging in spring. So it does provide interest for multiple seasons. So otherwise, I would say this is going to be a little bit smaller than some. Still a decent sized plant though. We planted it in the display gardens. I can't remember if it was last year or the year before. So I think the one thing that we're waiting to see is, you know, stem really does spread by runners quite a bit. And this one hasn't done that so far. So it's kind of, you know, the jury is out on how much it will do that in comparison. And I think that's kind of, you know, depends on what you're using it for. In some situations that's great and you want it to spread if it's more kind of along like a pond edge or something like that, and maybe more of a garden situation that's not so desirable. So it just kind of depends what you're looking for. But like I said, we have been impressed with this plant in comparison to some of the other ones. So that's Sorbaria Cherry on Top.
So I do have this one planted at my house, and I've had it there for 3 years, and it didn't start suckering until last year, so year 3. It was sporadic and far away from the mother plants, which was interesting. So it did, a few suckers did pop up in my lawn, but I just cut them back and they didn't like resprout from where they suckered. So I don't know. It didn't bother me a ton. The value of the plant, they're so pretty and they hold that red color really nicely all season. So, but it didn't sucker for a few years, but now it is. So I'll report back on year 4 how it's looking.
All right. So we did have a question. So yes, Sorbaria does spread. Is it invasive? I think I don't know it to be on any invasive list. I think, you know, I think that's just something where that's the habit of the plant. It's not necessarily going to take over, but that's how it grows. It grows by suckers. So
yeah, for the most part, it's been really well behaved. So. All right, next plant is Syringa centaurea double blue. So this is also a proven winner variety. So you'll see the species here. The species is Syringa cross hyacinthiflora. So this is actually a cross between Syringa oblata and Syringa vulgaris. As the name kind of makes you think hyacinth, it is extremely has a really strong scent. So you're going to see here that the flowers are double and they get a little bit of a blue tinge in the center of the flower, which is why it's called double blue. But really, really strong fragrance. Also on this plant, they've seen excellent disease resistant than maybe some of the, older types of Syringa, especially Syringa vulgaris. Needs good drainage, so make sure you plant it somewhere that has good drainage. Again, probably not a heavy clay area where it's going to sit and wet. Needs full sun, although can handle a little bit of shade. You're just going to see the kind of flower count go down a little bit if you plant it in shade, but can handle some light shade. And really the thing with Syringa, both of these Syringas is that we're going to talk about is they're extremely cold tolerant. So they're more cold tolerant than they are heat tolerant. And actually Syringas need about 70 days below 45 degrees to produce flowers. So if you're in a colder area, even than here in Chicago, Syringa is a great plant for you. So this one is going to get a little bigger though, 6 to 8 feet tall. So, but really nice. Syringa Centaurea double blue.
Yeah, I think it will be interesting to see on some of these syringas. I don't know about all of you, but in the display garden last year, some of our syringas started blooming in fall. After we kind of got cold and got hot again, they got a little confused. So it'll be interesting to see what the syringa blooms look like this coming spring. But yeah, so we do have another one that we're introducing this year. This is Syringa Virtual Violet, and this is part of the First Editions program. So this one has a deeper kind of raspberry purple color that's really pretty. We're actually phasing out Syringa Charles Jolie, and this is kind of a replacement for that, kind of a similar flower color. This does have a really nice habit to it, so very upright, very dense. It's going to be taller than it is wide. And we have it planted in the trial garden, and I think we planted it 2 years ago. And the plant we got from the trial houses. So our trial houses, it's kind of, we're worried on keeping up with our regular production. So the trial houses don't always get the top care. So the plant that came was a little straggly looking, and it filled out beautifully last year. I was so impressed with just kind of one season, how much kind of growth it filled in, and it kind of made up for its wonky original shape. So I do think this one is going to be a really nice grower for us in our area, and a really nice kind of, again, rich purpley red color. So we are planning to have this one in May, and we do have a question on the syringas. Do the syringas rebloom or last longer? Neither of these are rebloomers. I think from what I remember last year, the virtual violet maybe lasted a little bit longer. Sorry. Nikki, do you know on the Centera?
Huh?
Do you know on the Centera? I don't
know.
know how
And
long
we
it is.
just planted that one in the trial gardens, I think, this year, yeah, or in I think summer of 2024. So yeah, we'll have to take a look at that and report back. It's not going to be like bloomerang, but I think what you get with these is probably a stronger scent, bigger plant, than you see with bloomerang. So. All right, and then the last shrub for 2025 is Viburnum Glitters and Glows. So this plant should not be new to you, brand new to you. We used to carry glitters and glows separately, but they need each other to produce that beautiful blue fruit. So we're comboing them in one pot now, so you don't have to worry about if you're going to get flowers or not. So, or flowers and berries. So the plants will have that nice kind of beautiful white kind of flower in summer, and then in the fall, late summer, fall, you're going to get that blue fruit, which is very attractive to birds. Birds love it. The claim to fame on this plant is it's really highly glossy foliage. So that is why it's called Glitters and Glows. It's going to get to be about 5 feet tall and wide. So kind of similar to other dentatums, maybe a little bit shorter. We knew we were going to get this question. So resistant to viburnum leaf beetle. So We have not seen anything at this point, but we are not in an area where we're having issue with viburnum leaf beetle. So because it is a dentatum variation, we say that it probably could get viburnum leaf beetle, but we just haven't seen it yet ourselves. So if you're in an area with heavy viburnum leaf beetle population, you probably want to stay away from most dentatum or all dentatum types. But you can plant other things like viburnum opening day or any of the Carlesii or Jedi species. Those will do just fine with the viburnum leaf beetle. So, but dentatum's not really great. But if you're able to plant it, this is a great plant. Viburnum glitters and glows. So we're going to do another poll. Which shrub are you excited about this season? And then we're going to roll into just a tiny bonus section for you guys. Shannon and I just really briefly are going to go over a few 2024 items that we feel like maybe people aren't fully aware of yet. And we'll move through those really quickly. They're just more reminders. We want to let you know that we have them and remind you of their good attributes. So well, I'm excited to see that the knockout is exciting to you guys.
Yeah.
Shannon, a question on the viburnum. Do they have a grafted male stem or is it all over self-pollinating? I think there's 2 plants in the pot.
I believe so. I'm trying to, I think that's what it is, that
Yeah.
there's a liner of each like planted
Yeah.
together in the same pot. So
Yep.
yeah, don't believe it's a graft. Okay, so yes, some of the new 24 varieties that we wanted to revisit. The first is Ajuga Pink Lightning, and this we've just seen perform really well. And so we had it in our trial gardens for a couple years, and then last year we planted it in the Hocus Pocus garden. I feel like lots of times we say Ajuga need more shade. This is in full sun. It did great. It's not like an overly variegated plant, so maybe a little bit easier, but I think we carried a variegated Ajuga in the past, or kind of a green and gold variegated, which reverted a lot. We have not seen this one revert, so it holds its variegation well, kind of that nice pink color, and it's just grown very nicely. So I would say probably more quickly than some Ajuga has filled out, covered the space. So again, it's all about what the situation you're looking to put a plant in, and maybe you don't want something that's going to grow really quickly, but I think in a lot of cases the ground covers you do, and this one has grown quite well for us. So just another one to look into if you haven't tried it yet.
Okay, next one is Cornus Silver and Gold. So this is going to be a yellow twig dogwood. This one we had in our trial gardens for years. We had one plant and we just kind of watched it. We were like, do we need another Cornus? And again, it just continued to impress us. Although, Cornus do tend to sucker, we didn't see a ton of that on this plant. It just kind of grew in this nice, beautiful clump, didn't get out of control. And really nice clean foliage. I think that was one of the things that really drew us to it, is that sometimes on Cornus with variegated leaves, you can see more leaf damage, burn, things like that. We definitely did not see that on this plant. So it took us quite a few years to actually add it to the product line after it impressed us. So like other Cornus, takes moist to well-drained soils, can handle a little bit more moisture maybe than some other shrubs. This one will get taller, but I will say it took quite a few years for it to reach its kind of full mature size, and it didn't seem totally overwhelming in the landscape, but 6 to 8 feet tall. Eventually, you guys can prune it if you want to. It can be taken down a little bit. Otherwise, if you want to keep maintaining that nice yellow stem color, you're going to want to go in every, late winter, early spring and cut out about 20 to 25% of the old wood, just to keep that fresh yellow color going. Deer tolerant and can take some clay as well. So really tough plant, Cornus Silver and Gold.
Someone's asking what was behind the picture of the Cornus. I'm not sure. I think maybe a rhododendron. So Cornish silver gold actually comes from the Mount Cuba Center out in Delaware. So they have better rhododendrons out there. So I think this is probably a photo from them, whereas the close-up is from our own gardens. Okay, and our last plant for today is another hydrangea, hydrangea Let's Dance Sky View. So this is from Proven Winners again. And this is a cross between a macrophylla and a serrata. So again, the macrophylla are the big leaf hydrangea. Serratas are mountain hydrangeas, which typically have better bud hardiness. They're a more cold hardy hydrangea. So that's why you're starting to see those incorporated in breedings with macrophylla just to improve the bud hardiness on these. So this is a reblooming hydrangea, kind of from a pink to a blue. We've had really good luck in our display garden with Let's Dance Rhythmic Blue. We do not use aluminum out there, so it's not blue, it's pink, but it does bloom pretty, it's I would say the best bloomer of the macrophyllas we have out there. And so this one's pretty similar to that. I would say if anything, its pink is a little bit deeper pink color. And then its blue is maybe a little bit lighter. So just some different shades there. But the Let's Dance series has proven to be pretty good with the reblooming in our area. So with not a lot of help, I guess we don't, again, I said we don't put aluminum. We supplementally water some in droughts, but not a ton. We're pretty low maintenance, so that program has done pretty well for us in the landscape.
All right, and with that, that is the end of the webinar. So thank you guys so much for joining us. We do have a couple more webinars this winter, so please make sure to go on the website and sign up for those. We have a set of good topics. So we appreciate you guys joining us today. Please be on the lookout for a survey after this webinar. We really want your feedback. We want to know what topics you guys want to hear about in future webinars. And also make sure to follow us on social media. So Instagram and YouTube. We're always trying to push out educational videos, once in a while a fun video too. So again, thank you guys for your time and have a great day.